think we spent a lot of time over the last few years talking about social issues and not enough time talking about bread and butter issues.
Tim O'Brien welcomes Darin Broton. This is Democratic Visions.
Darin Broton is a well-known DFL political strategist. Darin is frequently quoted by political insiders on their blogs and cited in their columns, and appears Sundays from time to time on Tom Hauser's At Issue on KSTP TV. Darin is a senior consultant with TUNHEIM, a strategic communications consulting firm working to promote the best interests of its clients. Welcome to Democratic Visions.
Thank you.
I think it's fair to say that 2016 wasn't a very good year for Democrats in Minnesota. We lost the House even more than we were at before, and we lost the Senate by a single seat. We had Governor Darin retiring. We have the Democratic Party a little bit at odds within itself between the Bernie Sanders supporters and the individuals who supported Secretary Clinton. Those are a benchmark of problems that we start from. On the other hand, in 2018, which is going to be a critical year, we got Senator Klobuchar, if she doesn't give up the Senate seat to run full-time for president. That's a joke. And we got Ken Martin continuing to run the party. All of that, I'm sure, is going to keep you busy. But do you have any opinion as to what Democrats need to do to know about ourselves and Minnesota in order to win elections going forward, and in particular in 2018?
Well, here's a couple pieces. One of those is we need to recognize that we are a big tent party. And I think we spent a lot of time over the last few years talking about social issues and not enough time talking about bread and butter issues. And understanding that when you get outside of the 7-county metro area, there's a whole different breed of folks out there. And I'm someone who grew up in greater Minnesota, and I can tell you that the frustration level that folks have out there is huge. The loss of jobs, their communities are shrinking, their schools are closing, and we did nothing. As Democrats, we did nothing to talk about that. We spent a lot of time talking about how we're going to have universal pre-K or all-day kindergarten. For a lot of these folks out there, they don't have enough kids to keep a kindergarten open. And so we need to do a better job of understanding those concerns that people outside of the metropolitan centers have. And that's a big piece of this. Understanding that we need to spend more time talking about economic issues and the things that unite us, and less time spending about things like abortion that have a tendency to divide too many of us in our party.
And I do agree with you. Of course, we've seen what President Trump did. He raised the concerns, but really just sort of gave a bunch of pablum as to what could be done. And that is the difficulty in trying to determine on a semi-realistic basis what can be done to alleviate those concerns in the outstate area. And it's a very, very difficult question. Some of it may be, in effect, insurmountable. I mean, the economies just may not be strong enough in certain parts of the outstate area to support decent education system and provide opportunities for the youth of that area. How are we going to do that? I mean, how are we going to address these problems that seemingly are not capable of being resolved successfully? Or maybe you don't agree with my pessimistic attitude.
No, well, foremost, the pathway back to majority at the legislature runs through greater Minnesota.
I understand that.
And so being able to have an honest conversation with folks about what can be done and what can't be done is definitely needed. You know, again, coming from greater Minnesota, we don't always need to have policy solutions. We just need to understand people.
Maybe the answer is
to be able to articulate.
Maybe the answer is to recognize the problem and at least to provide opportunities for individuals to address the problems.
You know, not everyone's always looking for a government solution in greater Minnesota. You know, where I grew up, it didn't really always matter what party you were from. Mm-hmm. It was always about likability.
Okay.
And if I could relate with them, and I think that he or she was a good person.
Okay.
We need to do a better job of not always talking about policy solutions to solve everyone's problems,
okay,
but how do we do a better job of actually relating with people,
okay,
and so that they feel like that we're part of their community.
What about a massive infusion of resources to upgrade the roads and bridges around the state, complete the broadband access, a good educational system? I would think that that would prove that the Democratic Party has their interests well in mind, and they're promoting them to the best of their ability.
Polling that our agency has done for some clients, and transportation funding is one of the top things that they want to have done at the legislature to fix roads and bridges across the state. We have a lot of roads and bridges that right now can't hold the capacity of large milk trucks or large grain trucks or farm equipment that needs to get our products to and from market. So making those investments would make a heck of a lot of sense. Also embracing and helping folks understand that in a lot of our communities that we have a changing faces of greater Minnesota. Whether you're in Worthington or Faribault or Wilmer, it is a lot less white and it's a lot more brown, it's a lot darker, which is again causing anxiety for a lot of folks. So again, it's about how do we help folks understand the changing dynamics and making sure that everyone feels like they are being part of this great state.
People in outstate Minnesota are concerned with declining enrollments of schools and schools closing. Is it feasible? Is it a good idea for the state to put additional monies out in outstate area to allow some of those schools to remain open even though such schools might be better off closed and consolidated? Well,
I'm a firm believer that if your town doesn't have a school, then you're not really a town anymore. Okay. And I grew up in the area and era where we had a lot of school consolidations, and a lot of communities basically shriveled up and died because they no longer had a school. It's one of the basic fundamental building blocks of a community. People need to have access to education, and being able to have your kid on a bus for an hour and a half every morning is not a suitable way of life that any Minnesotan should have to endure. And so whatever we can do to ensure that kids get the best quality education closest to their home, it should be a bedrock principle for anything we do in education.
So we shouldn't be so metrocentric as a party, but we should be looking towards the interests of the entire state.
Yes. We need to find a way to understand the economic anxiety that is happening in places like Wilmer and Worthington and Detroit Lakes.
I made reference to the critical 2018 election, and you happen to identify one of the Republican candidates I am willing to bet almost anybody on. I think that's going to be Governor Plenty making a comeback from his years of service as a financial lobbyist out in Washington, D.C. Do you think that you think he's going to run?
Well, his remarks recently at a Dakota County Chamber event sure sounded like a platform for something. Whether it's running for governor or deciding to run, he wants to become the Minshew chancellor.
Speaker Doubt, do you think he's going to run?
If I was to bet, I would say he probably is. I know he's been getting a lot of counsel from Republicans telling him he should not run.
Really?
If you're the House Speaker, you run for governor of two things. One, you're guaranteed the endorsement, which he is not. And second, you're guaranteed to win, which he is not in this case as well. So I know he's getting a lot of counsel that he should either stay being the speaker, although there's growing buzz as well about him running for Congress up in the 8th District.
That's interesting too.
And I know recently he said that he was not inclined to do that. I've heard from many Republicans that may just be a little bit of lip service, and that he is really thinking about running for Congress.
And I'm not going to go through the full litany of individuals on the Republican side, but I see where Jeff Johnson, the candidate in 14, has decided to run again. Do you think he's got any legs left?
I think it's a hard case when you lost, and you lost.
He's not. Is he in office right now?
He's Hennepin County Commissioner.
He is.
Yep, he's the sole Republican on the Hennepin County Board.
Okay.
But I think the challenge, for him is you lost. No one likes losers. Which is part of the problem I think Democrats had in 2016. They ran a lot of legislators who lost in 14. People fired them already or didn't hire them. Why are you giving me the same slate of people again?
And I'm not going to talk about all the Democratic candidates, but I would think Representative Walz or Representative Nolan might be individuals who could address the angst of outstate Minnesota. Do you think that it's a reasonable conclusion?
I think Congressman Walz, having a background of being a teacher and a veteran, and being from Greater Minnesota and being able to speak Greater Minnesotan is a great way for the party to address how it moves forward in the future. With that being said, Mayor Coleman, Representative Murphy, among others, have distinguished careers and would make formidable candidates as well.
And it would be certainly an oversight if we didn't mention Attorney General Lori Swanson, who's been a proven vote getter over the years.
I would be surprised if she does not run. She does have the Mike Hatch machine behind her, which means most likely she's going to the primary and not going to fight it out in an endorsement battle. But I think I would not be surprised to see her name on the ballot for governor.
Okay, now put on your prognosticator's hat, if you would, please. Is it going to be a Democrat or Republican winning the gubernatorial race in 2018 here in Minnesota?
I would say as of right now, it's most likely going to be a DFLer that is going to retain the seat, partly because we look at the slate of candidates on the Republican side versus the slate of candidates for the Democrats. I think we also need to factor in what's going on in Washington, D.C. and the Trump effect, the anti-Trump effect, the anti-Trump wave that seems to be building out there right now. Whether or not it's able to sustain itself all the way to November 2018 or not, midterm elections are corrections. And I would feel much better as a Democrat running for an open governor's race than if I was a Republican.
Okay, and what about the House? Any prospects of getting Democrats back in control of the House?
20 seats is a lot of seats.
It is.
And I think my back of napkin math, you can get halfways there just in the Twin City suburbs.
Yeah.
Which means
But you can't win all those seats. It's impossible, isn't it?
You could. There are probably 9 to 10 seats in the suburbs that you can win.
Okay.
And they could have a good shot at winning.
Okay.
Some of them were mistakes or errors in this last election.
I'm aware of that, yes.
But
some of it was dirty politics.
And some of it was dirty politics. Or foot and mouth disease.
Whatever.
But again, you're never going to win the majority back unless you need at least 10 seats in greater Minnesota.
Mm-hmm.
And there are 10 seats there today that could be won with the right candidates, with the right message, in the right environment. I think but it's not an easy road.
I mean, how can you have Tasca County and that Senate district up there represented by Republicans? It just boggles my imagination that those seats aren't winnable back in the Democratic column. And I'm sure there's other areas of the state that are the same. Now, Darin, you've been around the block a lot in Democratic circles. And I want to wax philosophical for the moment. What's your feel for why an individual decides to become a voting Democrat?
It's a gut thing. This feeling about how we're all in this together. By helping one another, we can all get ahead. You have an equal opportunity to have success in your life, whether it's have a good job, have a strong family, a roof over your head, and be able to succeed and have your next generation have that same opportunity.
You know, that would have been a winning message for Secretary Clinton. What I didn't hear you say, but it's consistent with our earlier part of our conversation, is that, and you have to support this issue, and you have to support that issue, and if you don't, there's no room for you here.
That's right. The only way this party can succeed is that we're a big tent. And while we all need to have bedrock core principles and values, we all get to the destination a little bit differently. And we have to be able to understand that and support that and nurture that feeling that we all have.
Do you think that candidates in the, let's call it the 7-county metro area, do they have to have a message that's somewhat different than the candidates, I'll use the term outstate?
Mm-hmm.
Do they have to come at the issues or the philosophy from a different point of view, or is there a bedrock core of values that should be common to candidates on the Democratic side, wherever they might be?
I don't think there's not a different message, because there are core values that we all share, whether you're from Hennepin County or whether you're from Blue Earth County. But it all comes down to how we talk about those values, and not having this level of that we know better than you. And I think
Or how about not calling somebody else part of the deplorables? Does that make sense?
That would be helpful too.
Mm-hmm.
I think when you get outside of the 7 counties, there is this feeling out there that the metro folks are just, they look down upon us, they don't understand us, their way of life is different. And I'm sure a lot of folks in the Twin Cities think the same thing about greater Minnesota. The folks out there don't understand what's going on, what impacts the things that's going on in their lives. But we may be 2 Minnesotas at the end of the day, but we're all in this together. And being able to actually work on things together and understand that, something that's important out in Worthington may not be important to me living in Eagan, but at the end of the day, the folks in Worthington need to see this happen because this is part of their community. And if it's a part of their community and makes their community stronger, healthier, and safer, then we should do it. your struggles in Worthington or Wilmer are the same struggles that people in North Minneapolis or on the east side of St. Paul are having. It's not always about party ID. It's about looking that man or woman in the eyes and saying, is that person a good person? Can I trust them at the end of the day to make the best decision for me and my family, even though I may not agree with them 100% of the time?
Sounds to me like the key in this whole thing, Darin, is to recruit very good candidates that are people-friendly and are able to relate to their friends and neighbors.
Yes.
Darin, thanks for stopping by Democratic Visions.
Thank you very much.
Democratic Visions is handcrafted by volunteers from Eden Prairie, Hopkins, Minnetonka, Edina, and Bloomington. Watch us on select cable systems and on our YouTube channel. This is Carol Sundstrom.